Hey there, you authentic parents. It's Joy here, and thanks so much for stopping by my channel today. If you find anything in this video that's a blessing to you or that you like, please go ahead and click on the like button. And if you feel led, go ahead and subscribe to see more of these videos every Tuesday. So do you find yourself being available and present with your children? For me, since I've been a single parent, I have found myself to be not as present as I was when I was married. When I was married, we didn't have that issue. My ex-husband was very present, and so was I when we were engaging with our children when we were home. But since I've been a single parent, mind you, I have a full-time job. I have 3 children. I lead the women's ministry at my church. I lead the events coordination at my church. And my oldest daughter is in choir, so she has different performances, different times of the day. My son is in basketball and he's in football. So when I was home, I would be there, but I would be planning the next thing, or on the phone with another person to minister, or whatever was going on. I wasn't really available to my kids. They became kind of a burden because I was so busy trying to keep track of all these other external things outside of my home. So in 30 days, there was a series of events that occurred almost every week. Some life-altering event occurred every week for 30 days in my life throughout the entire month of September. And so it began at the end of August. So I was coming home from a poetry event that I attended with P4CM, Passion for Christ Movement, and they have their annual event in Rancho Cucamonga. And so some friends of mine, and I took my eldest daughter and some other young ladies, and we went to the event, and it was amazing and beautiful. And I love spoken word poetry. And we were having lunch at a local restaurant, and I began to feel, I was in the middle of a conversation, and all of a sudden I felt this huge weight come on to the right side of my head that knocked me over like this onto the young lady I was sitting next to. And so I was down for about, I don't know, maybe a minute, but it felt like longer. It felt like everything was going in slow motion, and I couldn't speak, but I was crying. It was crazy. I didn't know what was going on. So when I came to, the young lady next to me thought that I was emotional because of the conversation that we were having. It was some, Jesus conversation. But it wasn't the conversation that we were having. Something literally happened that pushed me over. It was like a dark cloud was falling over my head. And so when I came to, I was like, no, this isn't emotion that I'm crying. There's something wrong. Something is wrong. Pray. And so my friends began to pray for me in that moment. And so I was like, okay. I went to the bathroom, cleaned up, and I was like, all right, Jesus, you got that covered in your blood. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to move on with my day. So we drove all the way back home, and then the next day I was supposed to return to work, but I was tired. I was physically tired and just drained. So I was like, girl, I'm going to take tomorrow off work. So I took tomorrow off work, and then I took the next day off work, and then I took the next day off work too, because I was so exhausted. I was physically exhausted. And after I took these days off, I wasn't feeling any better. I was starting to feel worse. So I called my doctor, and I'm like, hey, she was like, oh, something is wrong. So she had me do all this lab work. She had me get an MRI. She had heart rate monitor on me, all these things, because I was feeling so bad that I was in my bed all day. My children were literally taking care of me, and my friends would come by and take care of me. So I didn't know what was wrong. And all my lab work came back clear. There was nothing to indicate that something was wrong with me. My MRI came back clear, heart rate monitor came back clear, everything came back clear. Nothing made sense, to the point where my doctor began to think that I was making this stuff up. And I'm like, I am not a crazy person. But it looked like that on paper because there was nothing to identify medically what was going on with me. Well, during this time, I received a phone call from my mom with some really disturbing news. And I found some things out about her and the type of lifestyle that she was beginning to have that really threw me for a loop. So these things combined really debilitated me. So I was in bed every day, and to the point where I literally thought that I was dying, and I was making arrangements, and I was so thankful in that moment that I had life insurance enough to take care of my kids, and I had all my ducks in a row, so to speak. So if anything happened, then they would be taken care of. And if you don't have life insurance and you're a single parent, get some life insurance. We never know when these things are going to happen. Don't leave your kids out there hanging. So all these things were happening. So I was home every day. And while I was home, I really enjoy baking and cooking. I used to have a restaurant actually, and I catered for a little while because I just enjoy it. It brings me great joy. And so during the time that I was home, I would cook really good meals for my kids and decorate the plate all pretty because I like doing that kind of thing. And I would sit and listen to them while they were, coming home from school, things like that. And I would write. I was doing a lot of writing during this time. And so during this time, my son was in football. And so when I was cooking and I was starting to feel a little bit better, we had a cute little doggy named Bella, my first dog I ever loved. And I had taken my son, picked him up from football practice one day, and I took our dog with us so she could get out and run around. I was feeling better that day, and so I wanted her to go out and play too, get some running around at the park. So as soon as we got out of the car to let her run around, somehow she broke loose from her collar, jetted right into the middle of the street, and got hit by a car immediately. And that happened in front of my children, including my middle daughter, Kendall, who the dog was like her best friend. She called the dog her baby. And so in that moment, as a single parent, and it's just me there, the dog is in the middle of the street, and my kids are crying their eyes out on the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do in that moment. Do I get the dog out of the street, or do I go and console my kids? But it was devastating for them. It was devastating for me too. So that happened. And then a few days later, I was starting to feel better again. And so I went to a staff meeting because I'm on staff at my church. And so I went to a staff meeting because I was feeling okay this day. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to the meeting. And I had dropped my son off at his football picture day. And my good friend was going to take him home for me. So she was there, we met up, they saw each other, and I went on to my meeting. Well, in the meeting, I received a phone call from my friend saying, hey, has Jonathan called you? And I'm like, no, Jonathan hasn't called me. Is everything good? You guys are still at the football field? And she was like, yeah, we're still here at the football field, but we can't find Jonathan. And I didn't understand what she was trying to say in that moment until she said it again. And then I realized that Jonathan was missing. My 8-year-old son was missing. So 2 of my friends came with me to the football field so we can go find him. The coaches couldn't find him when I drove up to the football field. It was dark. Everyone had gone home, except there were a few kids there and a coach that was still there looking for my son. And I hear these people calling out his name and no one knows where he is. And I'm hearing all these different accounts where, oh, he got in the car with this person, or we saw him over there, and just horrible, absolutely horrible moment. Eventually we had to get the cops involved. And so long story short, my son ended up walking home. He ended up walking over 2 miles home at night, and there's no sidewalks through like a mile of that all the way home. And he'd never done anything like that before. It was crazy. And so that night I was telling God, and this is the 30th day. And so that night I just completely broke down, and I'm like, God, I have no control over my health. I have no control over the decisions in life that my mom has chosen to live. I had no control over my poor little doggy being killed in the middle of the street, and my kids had to witness that. I had no control over my son going missing. I cried and cried and cried. And God said, you don't have control over any of those things. The only thing that you have control over is your relationship with me, and I'll take care of all the rest. Can you believe that? Oh my gosh. In that moment, everything made sense. So then I looked back on that whole 30 days, and I felt like God was telling me that I needed to reprioritize my life. Stop being busy doing this and doing that and over here and over there, and get on his business. My priorities were to take care of my children and to do what he called me to do. He was like, I put all these things inside of you. You have so many gifts in you. You have so much creativity in you where you can create wealth. Prioritize your life. Get some order into your life. This is what I heard him telling me. This is what prompted me to reorganize my life and become present with my kids. And so now with my kids, even during this busy holiday season, which is usually busy, guess what? It's not busy for me. It's not busy for me over here. Me and my kids over here making snowflakes. We went caroling to a friend who just had surgery today. We're doing Christmas stuff, and we're just hanging out, talking about Jesus together as a family. You know why? Because God made me put my priorities in order. He's making me be present. And I didn't realize until that time that I was literally shut in and could not do anything for myself, that I realized how busy I had been about other people's business and not about my Father's business. And now that I am putting things in order and things are in order, and my kids are reaping the benefit of that, I'm so much calmer. I'm doing what he called me to do. I am able to be a part of my kids' lives. I took my son out of football. It was not beneficial to our lives. And just really getting order so that I can be present. I can be available, because as a single parent, we have to realize what the priorities are. Where should we be spending our time? Because you're the only source of love, joy, comfort for your kids. Like, you are that for them until they learn Holy Spirit and they learn the Lord for themselves. You are all of that to them. Authentic parent. Seek the Lord. Ask him the areas of your life where you need to reprioritize so that you can be present and be a part of your first ministry. Unless you're married, which is your husband, but your first ministry outside of that is to your kids. And so that's why I even started this channel, because I've been writing for years and I've never expressed it. I've never shared it. But the Lord had been trying to get me to do that. And so during that time, I just kept on writing and writing and writing, and then now birth authentic parenting. So I just pray that you become more present with your kids, because as a single parent, I know the struggle. I know that it's not easy. I know that you're doing it alone. You're all to that child, and you have to give your all at work and whatever else you're involved in. But really prioritize. Think of the things that you can cut out of your life and cut them out. Because your kids are the ones who need you. They're depending upon you to be there for them, okay? So I hope that this was a blessing to you. I hope that something in this video was helpful to your life. And if you liked it, go ahead and like it. So I'll see you back here next Tuesday.